I have been assured by the South African National AIDS Trust that the organization has a fraud prevention policy as well as a code of conduct. These instruments regulate and they also prevent fraud and malpractice. The SANAC Trust also has an audit and risk committee which was set up to deal with all these matters that have to do with compliance. The committee has an obligation to report any form of malpractice and fraud allegations to the entire trust, or they can escalate matters and report these to another structure, which is more of a state structure, the Master of the Supreme Court. The trust deed, supported by the Trust Property Control Act, holds the trustees and all of them responsible for acts of fraud or dishonesty. Recently, the trust introduced a system which requires members to sign a declaration of interest. This will further reduce the likelihood of conflicts of interest, and we trust and hope that this will also prevent fraud. In addition, all suppliers and contractors are managed through the supply chain management system that they have, which requires additional disclosures from all SANAC employees involved in the procurement of goods and services. Suppliers are also required, Chairperson, to disclose relationships, if any, with SANAC and other government entities. We welcome the appointment of Dr. Sandile Buthelezi as the Chief Executive Officer of the Trust. Dr. Buthelezi is a seasoned public health practitioner with more than 15 years' experience in program development and management in public and non-profit sectors. He was the one person who was involved with others in the establishment of the first ever Provincial AIDS Council in KwaZulu-Natal, where he also played a leading role in the conceptualization of the now renowned OSS program, which is Operation Suguma Sake. This Operation OSS has become a best practice model now, which is being replicated by a number of other provinces after they saw its efficacy. With this broad and diverse local and continental experience in HIV and TB management, Dr. Buthelezi, the new CEO, is expected to drive the implementation of the National Strategic Plan, which was adopted in March this year. With his appreciation for the strength of the multi-sectoral response, Dr. Buthelezi is expected to work closely with the civil society and development partners to deepen collaboration whilst continuously building capacity of the civil service organizations. I hope that honorable members will share our confidence that SANAC is well-governed and well-placed to successfully drive our national AIDS response in a collaborative way, as it has always sought to do. Thank you, Chairperson.
Deputy President, I am sure you'll agree that replacing a competent and effective official with a controversial one who has a dark cloud hanging over his head is a negligent approach to corruption. I'm saying this because the former SANAC CEO, Dr. Farid Abdullah's contract has not been extended, despite the fact that he's the one who built SANAC from scratch into an effective enterprise. And this has made him to be targeted by the colleagues at SANAC for refusing to let them abuse the organization for private gains. Deputy President, you're telling us now that you have replaced him and appointed Dr. Sandile Buthelezi. Let me tell you another side of Sandile Buthelezi you haven't told us. He has a controversial and a questionable past as the new CEO. And I'm saying this because in 2008, when he was the head of the HIV/AIDS in KZN, various allegations of corruption have been leveled against him by stakeholders and NGOs at the time when he was presiding as the head of the HIV/AIDS in KZN. He was also involved in the rollout and the use of unsafe plastic circumcision device called the Tara clamp, which caused fatalities.
Honorable Mgwebu, please take your seat. Honorable Kaula, why are you standing?
I'm standing on a point of order, Honorable Chairperson.
Yes, sir.
I wish you could attach a name to this, Dr. Buthelezi.
Honorable Mgwebu, please, I think Honorable Julius has done the honors. He has attached the name. Please proceed.
Thank you. My apologies, Mr. Kaula, Honorable Kaula. Dr. Sandile Buthelezi is a controversial and a questionable past. Various allegations of corruption have been leveled against him by stakeholders and NGOs when he was the head of the HIV/AIDS in KZN. Dr. Sandile Buthelezi was also involved in the rollout and the use of unsafe plastic circumcision device called the Tara clamp that caused fatalities, Deputy President. Now, Deputy President, if you're serious about rooting out corruption, truly, as you say, and that you believe in good governance, as you have always claimed, how can a man with this questionable and controversial past be appointed to this position of the CEO? And if these allegations that were leveled by credible organizations like Treatment Action Campaign and other NGOs were never followed, now that I'm raising them, will you follow these allegations and give us a report with the findings thereof and recommendations
Your time has expired.
to ensure that this matter is investigated and properly resolved? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you very much for raising these issues. I mean, these clearly are sharp and pointed issues. Let me just outline the processes that have been followed. The contract that Dr. Farid had with a CEO of SANAC Trust came to an end, and the trust had to deal with whether they should extend, whether they should renew the contract. And of their own volition in discussing this matter, they decided that they would like to open the opportunity up to a number of other applicants. And indeed, there were quite a number of applicants. Dr. Farid was interviewed, as well as Dr. Buthelezi and others. And in the end, the trustees themselves felt that they should appoint Dr. Buthelezi. Now, what you are outlining is something that is not known to me, because I'm not a trustee of the trust. They would have dealt with these matters themselves as a trust. What they then do is to report to myself as the chairperson of SANAC. What you've outlined and disclosed was never brought to my attention. In fact, it is the first time that I'm hearing of all this. The profile that we had of Dr. Buthelezi is what I outlined in my initial answer. So what you have put forward is something that I would certainly like to look at. We'll examine all the details that you've put forward, and I'll discuss it with the trustees of the SANAC Trust, and we will then take the matter forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Mohapi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Deputy President, with regard to the same matter of the CEO, the new CEO, Mr. Buthelezi, there's been allegations from the various civil organizations that are intending to withdraw from SANAC. What is it that the Deputy President is going to do to ensure that all stakeholders that are participating fully within the SANAC are really contained for the betterment of addressing issues of HIV out there, which remains a challenge in our country? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Deputy President.
Thank you, Chairperson. As we all know, SANAC is a collaborative undertaking or institution in which is involved a whole range of organizations, from government through to non-governmental organizations, trade unions, sporting organizations, you name them, they are all there. So it is a very wonderful example of true collaboration in our country, which deals with a very vexing matter, which is very high on the profile or on the agenda of our country. So what we will be doing is to discuss this matter within the SANAC family. Now that it has been raised, we will take time to discuss it, and the Treatment Action Campaign colleagues, as far as to myself, never raised it in the detail that it has now been disclosed. And indeed, we will be able to sit down with them and whoever else has information in this regard, but we will, for all intents and purposes, always seek to see SANAC united, even as we will be dealing with a very complex matter that has to deal with the issue that has now been raised. So my job as chairperson of SANAC is to keep the integrity of the unity of SANAC intact and make sure that as we address difficult matters, we always focus on the task that we have at hand. We will do so. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mokwile.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Deputy President, for your response. But I would like to check with you, President, that yes, we acknowledge as the EFF, we acknowledge that there is this conspiracy that is running about your private life and you being a public person. We know that this conspiracy that is running, it's obviously because of the contestation or the conference of the ANC that is coming on our way. Now, my question to you, Honorable Deputy President, is that what do you think will be the impact on your personal, of your personal controversies on your effective leadership of SANAC? What will this personal controversies that is running about your name will affect your performance as a chairperson and the leader of SANAC? Thank you very much.
The principal question is around the issues of corruption and measures that are in place to deal with SANAC. You are within your rights if you wish to take this personal question, but that supplement is not a supplement that arises from the response that you gave to the primary question. I'm going to leave it up to you, sir, but you are not forced to respond because it's a completely different question.
I'm happy to respond to the question. I did say in the National Assembly that I would be dealing with this matter in a day or two. Having said that, I was then counseled by quite a number of leaders within our movement, and including structures at the lower level, at the provincial level and at regional level, and they said to me, Deputy President, when you address this matter in the West Rand, you said you take responsibility for your actions and you're taking accountability. And they said, you even said you've discussed it with your family, with your wife. And they said, as far as we are concerned, that matter should rest there. And we do not believe you should take it any further. And indeed, when I raised the matter in the National Assembly, there were quiet noises that were raised where members in the National Assembly said, not here. We do not want this matter discussed here. So basically, the type of response I have received, having said that I take responsibility and I've discussed this with my family, with my wife, and we've discussed it to a point where we have reached a level where there is understanding, and I've taken full responsibility for that. Now, having done that, I'm also having to listen to my own organization, to the structures within my own organization, and to the membership of my organization. And what I have gained quite clearly is that this matter is a private matter. You continue doing what we would like you to do in relation to our organization. So, in relation to the work that I'm doing for SANAC, I do not see this as affecting the work that I'm doing. I've been given a responsibility which I'm executing to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy President. The second question is question number 8. It was posed by the Honorable Labuskaghni. Deputy President.
Honorable Chairperson, South African Airways debt of approximately 6.8 billion rand, which matures on 30th September 2017, will be resolved through a two-pronged approach. Firstly, any funds being considered will have to be appropriated through the special appropriation bill, which will in part assist the airline's working capital and repay some of the maturing debt. SAA is also negotiating with its lenders to extend maturing debt beyond the 30th of September 2017. The precise makeup of the quantum of extension of debt and repayment of part of SAA's maturing debt will be announced by the Minister of Finance and the South African Airways Board at an appropriate time. At this stage, therefore, there is no need to invoke Section 16 of the PFMA to support SAA. On the matter of monies owed by SAA by the Angolan government, the position is that the new government in Angola has indicated that it will settle this debt. I thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Deputy President. The Honorable Labuskaghni.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Deputy Chairperson, for the feedback. As you said, there should be a special appropriations bill. Unfortunately, Deputy President, you and I know, and all of us know, up till the 30th of September, it's absolutely not possible to pass a bill like that. Then, apart from that, there are reports that Nedbank refused to roll over of the debt, as well as Standard Chartered Bank and Citibank, because of the involvement of Dudu Myeni. And Minister Malusi Gigaba has previously indicated that she will stay there in the position until the AGM. And we all know that according to the regulations, the AGM must be held before the end of this year. Now, Deputy Chairperson, in your capacity as the Chairperson of the Interministerial Committee on the SOE reform, will you step in and remove Dudu Myeni as a continued employment prove to be a massive liability to SAA, because it's all these loans that has to be paid as well as penalties, most probably? And if not, why are you yet again unwilling to act in the best interest of this country, rather choosing to once more protect the ANC political elite in this case?
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson, rather. Thank you, Chairperson. I'm accustomed to deputies because I'm a deputy. Chairperson, the matter of appointment of chairpersons of SOEs is a matter that is dealt with by the Cabinet. Cabinet deals with these matters, and as it turned out, when the board was reconstructed, it was Cabinet that dealt with this matter. So I would say that we should leave this matter to Cabinet to deal with. The IMC deals with broad policy matters. That's the IMC that I chair as Deputy President. It deals with broad policy matters that have to do with the appointment policy of the boards. We do not deal with the specific names of people who should be appointed. That is left to the cabinet to deal with. So I would say, much as the matter has been raised in the way that it has, it should then be left to cabinet to finalize. Thank you, Deputy Chairperson.
Thank you, Deputy President. The Honorable Kaula.
Ngiyathokoza sihlalo. Honorable President.
Deputy.
Deputy President, thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
Ngiyabonga.
The SAA has been a continuing problem for South Africa for as long as one can remember. Every year, for the past whatever years, these bailouts keep on coming back and coming back and coming back. Now, it means as a country, we keep on falling on the same spot every year. Now, as South Africans, we would like to know what other progressive strategy can the government have to ensure that SAA does not become a liability even to the future generations of this country? Because, you know, this thing of every year, the same problem keeps on coming back. It talks to the kind of leadership we have at the SAA. It talks to the kind of leadership we have in the country. It talks to the leadership we have in the IMC, the chairperson himself. Now, what other strategy does the government have to can be able to take us out of this dilemma, Honorable President? Thank you, Chair.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Chairperson, and Honorable Kaulang. Thank you very much. The issue of the SAA is a very complex one. SAA is a 100% owned state company, and it's operating in a very difficult market. Airlines around the world are not your most profitable type of entities. The sector is a very competitive one, and many have faced headwinds and difficulties in terms of becoming profitable and getting out of the difficult situations that they are in. Right now, SAA is right there, facing headwinds and great difficulties from an operational and profitability point of view. In the past, it operated well and made profits, and right now, it is facing great difficulties and needs the bailouts that only the government can give it. Now, from the IMC point of view, we have been looking at processes and policies that can enable our state-owned enterprises to operate better. First thing that we looked at, which I think is covered by another question which I can address now, is how best the boards can operate, and how best management can operate, and how the financial stability of those entities can be upheld. Now, our belief and our strong belief in this regard is once you can position the board and empower the board and get good management to run the company, you are going to be in a much better position. And this is precisely what we are doing right across the various state-owned enterprises. Having set out the policy, we are also looking at how the balance sheets of these companies can be better managed and how the financing, those that need financing, can be better structured so that they are not driven into bankruptcy. So that is what we are looking at. And we need time to be able to do that. And let us remember that these entities have two mandates to fulfill. The one mandate is a developmental mandate, and in SAA side is to make sure that it boosts the tourism prospects of our country. And tourism is a big sector of our economy that is creating a lot of jobs. And from a tourism point of view, South Africa keeps on seeing more and more tourists coming here. So we need to leverage the position of SAA to boost our tourism sector. And that may look like a difficult task, but that's exactly what we are involved in. And the other one, which is an important mandate, is that they must become profitable. So you have a clash of these two mandate requirements, developmental as well as profitability. And it's a very tricky task to balance the two. But because they are state-owned, we expect them to balance both of them, to be both developmental and also to become profitable. And I can assure you that the efforts that we're putting in place are meant to achieve precisely both. And we are sure that we will get SAA into profitability going forward if we do all the things that the IMC is focusing on. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Deputy President. The Honourable Faber.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Good to see you in the House, Mr. Deputy President. I just wanted to know, are there any penalties and fees to be expected from the loans maturing on the 30th of September 2017?
Deputy President.
As the loan industry works, there are always things like interest as well as penalties that one needs to face up to and to negotiate. You have to negotiate your way around that. And once the covenants have not been properly met, you can expect that there could well be. In this case, I do not have the specific details of the type of penalties that could be part of this whole process, but that obviously is dealt with by the financial people as they crunch the numbers and look more closely at the impact of the loans, because some of the loans have different maturity dates. And you've mentioned one, there could have been sub-loans or subordinated loans that could have slightly different maturity dates as well. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Deputy President. The last supplementary goes to the Honourable Shabangu.
Thank you, Chair. Deputy President, under no condition or circumstances must government stake at Telkom be sold. Telkom is an example of what can be achieved with SOEs if the people appointed are not corrupt and competent. Telkom is profitable.
Honourable Shabangu, are you on SAA or on Telkom?
Yes. That is SOEs. That is what we expect from SOEs. When the cabinet reappointed Ms. Dudu Mnyeni, a chairperson of South SSA board, in August last year, it was for a year. The fact that she's still the chair of SAA has proven to be illegal. Given that cabinet was not consulted, who appointed her? What will be the repercussions for illegal appointment? What measures will you take, Deputy President, and what measures should be taken to ensure that her appointment is immediately terminated? Thank you.
Deputy President.
Thank you, Chairperson. I did address this matter earlier and said that in the end, Cabinet deals with these matters. And so Cabinet will address this matter as it always addresses matters of appointments of board members to state-owned enterprises. So this is one of those that Cabinet will have to apply its mind to. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Deputy President. Before we proceed, I just want to, honorable members, to tell you that we are very honored today. We have 3 schools from around Cape Town, the Dominican School for the Deaf from Wynberg is here. We also have the Delabat School van die Dowes from Worcester. We also have Nolutando School from the Deaf from Khayelitsha. You're welcome, my children. We must also say that we are very happy, Deputy President, that Dr. Vauda, Honorable Vauda, is back. He's looking very well. Deputy President, we proceed to our 3rd question. It is a question posed to the Deputy President by the Honorable Khai.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable members, in February of this year, the NEDLEC social partners reached agreement on the introduction of the national minimum wage, which was set and agreed to by the partners at 20 Rand an hour. And this should commence on the 1st of May in 2018. Yesterday, the partners at NEDLEC met and finalized all the outstanding issues, which will be paving the way for the bill to be brought to Parliament for processing so that the workers of our country are then able to benefit and partake in the commencement of the national minimum wage on the 1st of May. A code, another area of agreement was a code of good practice and an accord on collective bargaining and industrial action in which all social partners in NEDLEC committed to take all steps necessary to prevent violence, intimidation, and damage to property during industrial action. The accord also seeks to improve the capacity of the social partners and other agencies to enable them to resolve disputes peacefully and quickly. They also agreed on amendments to the Labor Relations Act, which amendments will be tabled before Parliament, that aim to further strengthen collective bargaining and dispute resolution. These agreements have paved the way for the tabling to Parliament of the Labor Relations Act, so it will be coming. The introduction of a national minimum wage is intended to significantly improve the lives of the lowest paid workers in our country. This is an important intervention aimed at reducing wage poverty in our country. Having received the latest poverty statistics, which were worrying 2 weeks ago, this intervention, Madam Chair, is going to definitely help many people a great deal. Well over 6 million workers will see their wages increase to a minimum of 20 Rand an hour, hopefully, en route to a living wage, which is still the objective that all partners have set themselves. Combined with strong collective bargaining and agreement on annual adjustments, we are confident that workers in our country will have their dignity restored. On the broader question of unemployment and poverty, government is intensifying the implementation of a number of interventions. And we've put out a number of plans, and one of those, which is the 9-point plan, which is a major intervention by government, seeks to unlock the job creation potential of cooperatives, small and medium enterprises, revitalize rural and township enterprises, and to re-energize long-standing and greenfield sectors like the oceans economy. Our interventions in the oceans economy have unlocked, Madam Chair, significant investments that will create jobs. This initiative has attracted quite a lot of investment from the private sector. The Department of Trade and Industry is currently providing incentive support to the tune of almost R500 million for investment in ports, marine, manufacturing, and aquaculture. And working together with the private sector, we are finalizing plans for the employment in internships as well as in learnerships of up to 1 million young people, which should commence on a test pilot basis later this year. All these actions constitute a basket of interventions to reduce unemployment, to reduce poverty and inequality. And we're hoping that we should be able, as we have now come out of technical recession, to see further growth in our economy, and this will be greatly enhanced by the deepening of social dialogue amongst all the partners, business, labor, community, and government. We believe that we are well on our way to move South Africa forward. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair. The Honorable Khai.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Deputy President, for the comprehensive response. But recently, recent figures by the State South Africa indicate that many people, particularly in rural areas, female-headed households, are living under poverty. Government has announced many tools to accelerate growth, create jobs, eliminate poverty and inequality. Recently, Honorable Deputy President, the Minister of Finance announced another package of the 14-point plan to jumpstart our economy with the aim to attract investment, both domestic and foreign, and create employment, reduce poverty, eliminate inequality. Can the Honorable Deputy President give assurance that the government will be able to accelerate implementation of all policy tools and shift the economy to a higher gear? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Yes, I can confirm that the government is now more directly focused on implementation. We've put out quite a number of plans. The 14-point plan, the 9-point plan, and also in mining, the 10-point plan. We have put out a number of initiatives. And in many ways, one could say, isn't there a weakness in all that? There is no weakness in that. Each of the points of the plans that we have are focusing on specific areas. For instance, the 9-point plan. One of the areas it focused on was to stabilize the energy supply and generation in our country. That has been done, so we can tick that. And we also focus on agro-processing. And agro-processing is an important sector, or agriculture is an important sector in our economy. And we saw the delivery of agriculture in the growth that we just had in the last quarter. 2.5%, and agriculture contributed quite significantly in that. It shows that our focus on agriculture, agro-processing is beginning to bear fruit. We also focus on beneficiation, which is part of mining, and we saw how mining also increased productivity even under difficult circumstances, and that productivity had a contribution also from what the 9-point plan seeks to focus on. But the other important thing was, in our 9-point plan, we said we would want to boost investment in our country. And having focused on that, we've seen more and more investments coming through. So this is an illustration to say that as we announce these various plans, they should never be seen as just talk from government. These are meaningful initiatives that are meant to focus on specific areas that are able to move the needle and to move our economy forward. What is pleasing with what government is focusing on is that it identifies a problem, and having done so, it comes up with a response. And the response quite often is an initiative or an intervention which is aimed at making sure that we get results. Are we getting results from all these interventions? My answer is yes. And in some cases, it will be slow. In the ocean economy, for instance, we are already beginning to see investment coming in. Having identified the ocean economy as an area that we need to focus on to unlock new economic opportunities. So that is a sector where there is growth. We also decided that we are also going to focus on promoting radical economic transformation by creating black industrialists. Are we creating black industrialists? Thus far, we've identified 46, and that has brought in billions of investment from the private sector with initial contribution from the state. Small and medium enterprises, we're also doing a lot there. So the plethora of plans should never be seen as a weakness. It should be seen as a strength and should be seen as a process through which the South African government is responding to the current economic slump. So we are trying to do everything to move our economy forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy President. The Honorable Koni.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Today you are wearing a very progressive color, red. Thank you very much, Deputy President. If my memory serves me well, you would agree with me that it has been a year since the National Minimum Wage panel reported its recommendations to you. So the babereki ba santse ba eme ba tlhomme matlo, Deputy President. You announced the recommendations of the advisory panel and advised that the national minimum wage would be 3,500, and the EFF rejected that. So because it has been a year, I want to ask you if the amount still remains the same, or because it has been a long time, or at least it's going to be 4,500 like the EFF would want it to be, or more than that. Thank you.
Deputy President.
Honorable Madam Chair, Honorable Koni, you'll be pleased to know that once we had crafted this agreement, and crafting it as a 20 Rand per hour was quite an inspired move, in that if you calculate the 20 Rand an hour, which is what workers do, workers focus on what they get paid an hour. And as they work, some work 8 hours, some work 9 hours. And as a number of them work, they do their own calculations, and we found that in the main, the bulk of the workers would be getting around 3,900. Now, obviously, with overtime and so on, that'll be slightly more. Now, the one other important thing that the social partners agreed on is that there should be no erosion of the value of the minimum wage that they are going to earn when it is implemented. Now, when it is implemented, yes, you're right, it's going to be that 20 Rand an hour, but embedded in our agreement is the ability to have a commission which is going to be set up, which is going to look at the efficacy of that amount, which is going to look at when and how it should be increased, taking into account a range of factors. Now, the good thing about this is that it is the social partners themselves who reached this agreement. It's not an imposed one. Business, labor, communities, and government bought into this, and this arrangement has now settled in the minds of many people in our country and is now being seen as a great opportunity. And in some cases, working people see it as a historic moment in the life of our country, that we now have a chance to lift some 6 million people, many of whom are earning way below that 3,500. And there are some people, Honorable Koni, who are still earning less than 1,000 Rand a month in our country. There are some people who are still earning 500 Rand a month in our country. So this momentous agreement is now going to lift 6 million people, as the panel calculated. 6.6 million people who are earning less than 3,500 will be lifted to the level of 20 Rand an hour. And this is going to be a great boost, we believe, to their own lives. And it's also going to be a great boost for South Africa to begin acceding towards a living wage. And many unions say this is a good beginning. And I think we should embrace it and applaud it as such, that it is a start. It is not the end. We now have a baseline from which we can give our people a decent living. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy President. The Honorable Makue.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. To the Deputy President, we appreciate particularly the answer that you've given before, which relate to the minimum wage and also what is in the original question called low wages. Our responsibility as legislatures is to pass the law, but what we find is that in this instance, we may have many of the employers that find very creative ways of ensuring that they do not adhere to the legislation. And my question is particularly related to two sectors in the productive economy, which is domestic workers and farm workers. Can you tell us, Deputy President, what practical suggestions or what practical steps are considered to ensure that domestic workers and farm workers will benefit from this legislation?
Thank you, sir. Deputy President.
Honorable Chairperson, we did, as we crafted this agreement, all of us as social partners realized that there were going to be two sectors that are going to face great difficulties. The one is the personal one, which is like domestic work, and the other one is going to be farm work. We've known historically that domestic workers in our country are paid the lowest wages. That we have known historically. And that continues and that persists. And domestic workers are also very difficult to organize because they work in our homes as individuals, hidden in our kitchens, in our homes, and with no one ever knowing what they earn. Now, domestic workers in our country will now know, and let me say there has been a wage determination which has helped them a great deal. But notwithstanding that, we've also found that a number of employers have not been living up to the wage determination. But right now, with the minimum wage gaining traction, gaining popularity, we're hoping that individuals who employ domestic workers will be able to bring their level of wages up. Now, the same applies to farm workers. We have established tiers and given people who employ domestic workers time to live up to the final minimum wage. And we've said, yes, domestic workers, as I recall, would be paid at the level of, I think, 70% of the minimum wage for a set period of 2 years, and thereafter, they should then accede to the higher level. So employers in domestic work are given an opportunity, time enough to prepare themselves to know that they will have to start paying the national minimum wage. And the same would happen with farm workers, which is at a higher level. Farm employers, rather, will need to pay slightly lower than the actual minimum wage for a set period, and thereafter, they have to pay the national minimum wage. Now, one of the things that we've also agreed is that those employers who are not able to pay the national minimum wage can come and apply for an exemption. And this addresses itself to why didn't we set the minimum wage at a high level? We could have set the minimum wage at 10,000 Rand. And if we had, many people would have lost their jobs, that's for sure. At 3,500 Rand, some employers are saying, or 20 Rand an hour rather, some employers are saying that it's going to be difficult for them. And we have said, every employer who will find it difficult must come forward and apply for an exemption. The exemption process will go into examining the difficulties that they have, and it will be set for a specific period. Thereafter, they will have to come back again. So this is to ensure that there is no mass loss process in our country, that many of our people don't lose jobs, and that the Department of Labor will get involved in the process of giving exemptions. But that is also going to mean that the Department of Labor should sharpen its inspectorate. We should be able to ensure that there is full implementation of the national minimum wage. So the department is in the process right now of getting inspectors employed, trained, so that by the time the national minimum wage is put in place, we have an inspectorate that will be able to monitor it, to make sure that it is applied and properly implemented. Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, the government is currently involved in the process of reforming our state-owned enterprises. This process is led by the Interministerial Committee, which is chaired by the Deputy President. The work of the IMC is informed by the recommendations that were issued, and indeed were issued by the Presidential Review Commission, and were accepted by government. Some of the recommendations that have been adopted include the finalization of the private sector participation framework for infrastructure delivery, the framework for the costing of the developmental mandate, the remuneration framework, as well as the guide for the appointment of persons to boards of these state-owned enterprises, as well as the chief executives thereof. Once these are fully implemented, I believe that our state-owned enterprises will be able to reclaim their role as the drivers of growth and development in our country. And this is a key objective that we have. We've got almost 720 state-owned enterprises in our economy, and a number of them are in the big category, and they should be playing a key role in the growth of our economy, and that is where we want to position them and reposition them, those who may not be doing that. According to the National Development Plan, South Africa can double its GDP by 2030 if state-owned enterprises work to their full potential. Now, this is the promise that is set out in our National Development Plan. This cannot be achieved unless we strengthen the governance of our SOEs, and to this end, the IMC will be submitting to Cabinet the second draft of the Government Shareholder Oversight Policy to clarify mandates and to regulate lines of accountability. The draft policy outlines the rationale for continued state ownership in the key sectors of the economy and make proposals for alternative ownership models. And this is clearly in line with the economic trajectory that we have chosen as a country, to have a mixed economy, to have an economy in which the private sector plays a key role and in which the public sector also plays a role. As it is now, 70% of our economy is owned and driven by the private sector, and 30% by the public sector. Now, what we need to do is to make sure that the public sector, as in our state-owned enterprises, functions so well as we transform our economy as a whole, as we transform and change the patterns of ownership, the patterns of control, and make sure that radical economic transformation becomes the order of the day. Now, implementing a new shareholder oversight model will be a radical change in governance and operation of our SOEs in order to be competitive, but more importantly, to regain investors and public confidence. And we know that the public has lost a lot of confidence in many of our state-owned enterprises because of the many things that have been happening therein. And our objective as an IMC is to make sure that our people regain that confidence. And we want our SOEs to have qualified and ethical boards and also have competent staff. The appointment of boards must follow a well-planned, formal and transparent procedure that will be applied across the different SOEs. Now, our target here is to promote transparency in the appointment of boards and to increase accountability and sound administration and good governance practices. But more importantly, Madam Chair, we want our state-owned enterprises to be well-functioning companies that are profitable and that will be delivering on their dual mandate, a developmental mandate as well as a profitability mandate. Thank you very much.